Well, good evening and welcome everybody to Maggie's tour. Maggie.
Maggie Guthrie is my name, and we're in the year 1651, so if you would like to cast your memories back, those of you who remember so far back, then you can enjoy Kirkcudbright as it was before cars and buses were introduced, and when life was different, perhaps not quite so easy, but much different.
To understand where Scotland was in 1651, I'm afraid I have to give you a history lesson. And we go back to 1603, when our King James VI of Scotland went south to London to become King James I of England. When he left his native Scotland, he promised he would return every 3 years. He survived for 22 years, and in that time came back only once. So, by his death in 1625, the people of Scotland were looking for their identity, much less to the monarchy and much more to the Kirk. Sub-history lesson about the Scottish Kirk, as opposed to the English Kirk. Right, we're dealing with two systems, the Anglican system in England and the Presbyterian system in Scotland. Anglican Church, Archbishop, bishops, clergy, lay people. Pyramid. Presbyterian church government. People, some of whom are what they call ruling elders, the people who make the decisions, but they're still members. Some become ministers, but they're still elders, and therefore they're still ordinary members of the congregation. A group of elders meets each year as the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland and appoints one man, a man, until very recently in the 21st century, as moderator. But the moderator is still an elder and therefore still a member. So it is democratic, everybody has one vote. And if you like to contrast it with the Anglican pyramid, it is a Presbyterian pancake. Right, but do you know why? Or was it a good guess? Oh, you're resistant. I can tell. The best reason for them actually wasn't because they didn't like the king, but Parliament gave them the best offer. And their offer, contained within another covenant, the Solemn League and Covenant, was the one in which the Scots made Parliament sign and say, we will introduce Presbyterian church government into England and Ireland as well as Scotland. So the Scots said, right, we'll support yours.
Seek your permission to enter the town of Kirkcudbright through the Meikle Gate.
Aye, right, well, in a minute. Don't go beyond this line. No. What's going on? If you can see over there, these were where the foundations of the Meikle Gate, or Big Gate of Kirkcudbright, were. There were a number of great gates over the centuries. The one we are interested in was built in 1590 by a Mr. Herbert Gledstane. And in fact, the document still exists. The Toon Council instructs Mr. Herbert Gledstane that the new Meikle Gate shall be made in this wise. It shall be made in stone and laid with lime. It will have battlements. No cheap job this. Its walls will be as wide as its funds, foundations, and as thick as the walls of the harbour. It is to be built as tall as the height that a man on horseback, with his arms stretched above his head, can just touch the pin stane of the arch. So, I'm on my horse. It was that size. The door itself shall be made of timber with bands of metal around it to make it withhold any attack. All this work is to be completed within a 12-month from this date, and when it is done to the satisfaction of the Toon Council, Mr. Gledstane will be paid the sum of £50. He was, and it did. Right, it was used for defence. At night there would be 6 men armed on the gate to watch out for marauders and invaders. They might have firearms, we're not so sure, pikes, halberds, swords, bows and arrows more likely. And if an enemy was seen, a bell would be rung and the male citizens should come and help. If they didn't, they could be fined or they could be exiled from the town. If a guard failed to do his duty, he would be fined and he would be put in the stocks.
Gather round. How is business, Mistress McBurney? Are you being kept busy?
Extremely.
This is our local midwife, one of the most popular women in the town.
In the 17th century, it was a hard time for women. Oh, you wouldn't have wanted to live then. No, but I was a midwife in the 17th century. And you know, not just anybody could be a midwife. You had to have a special licence. And with the special licence, you had to have responsibilities and duties that you had to carry out. What are you up to?
Aye, just mind yourself.
I missed them at the gate.
You did indeed.
I
Were you in the pub?
was sleeping.
I think you were in
And
the
I,
pub.
no, I was just having a wee nip.
Smell it.
But you can't come through the gate because it's shut. Did he not hear the bell ring?
no,
Tall
he's-
bell stops you coming in.
Usual.
You can't come in.
We're in.
Oh, no, but yeah, I'll put them out. They're invaders.
Oh.
They're lemming. I'll take a shilling off you.
What are you up to?
Hey, see, I'm doing a wee bit of business here. You just gonna.
It's me, I want to do the business, not you. Come on.
Oh!
Yeah, but this woman-
Just leave me alone! Yeah!
Dear me.
Right. You're coming with me to the Procurator's Fiscal.
No! No! Yeah! Catch me if you can!
Oh well, oh well, oh well. This is our local poor harlot, lady of the night, Annie Kennedy. These two women are much in demand in our fair region.
I think I'm more in demand than you.
Well, ladies, we won't fight about your popularity.
Anyway, I have lots and lots of duties and responsibilities that I need to carry out being a midwife. And I have to be able to make sure that I can read and write as well, because I have to make sure that all the bairns that are born in this district are baptised and registered with the curate. So I have to be able to read the papers and make sure they're filled out right. You know. And I have to be able to make a pledge that I promise to help all the poor women, not just the rich ones that can afford to pay. No, I've got to help the parians as well. That's right. And I also have to make sure that all these women that are having bairns are being honest about who the father of the bairn is, because you know they can't, and just like you did, they can't wheedle a wee bit of money off somebody rich for pretending that that was who the father of the bairn was. No, you can't tell lies about stuff like that, and I have to make sure. And we're not allowed to use any kind of charms or any
I
magic.
can use charms though.
Any mom? No, but I'm not allowed to use any kind of charms or magic powers. You know, witchcraft.
These are members of the 6 Hale Incorporated Trades of Kirkcudbright. And I'm going to hand you over to Mr. Their jobs.
Thank you very much, Maggie. Cheers. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, on a lovely night like this. As Maggie rightly says, these gentlemen and myself are members of the Hale 6 Incorporated Trades at Kirkcudbright. For the English among you, you have heard of the guilds, English guilds. The trades are the Scottish equivalent of the guilds. So basically what we do is we deal with the commerce in the town. And myself as the deacon convener, I'm elected yearly from among the 6 deacons. And the trades that we have in Kirkcudbright are the clothiers, the tailors and the weavers, the hammermen and glovers, the shoemakers and the squaremen.
You always forget about me.
You can join my trade anytime. I'll speak to you later. Go for it. If you want to set up business in Kirkcudbright, go back to where I was saying, sorry, these gentlemen, the ones in the blue coats, represent 3 of the deacons of the 6 trades. The gentleman in the middle is the standard bearer, he carries my standard. The 2 gentlemen in the end are the halberdiers, my protection. Also lend them out to the provost, who you're going to meet along at the toll booth very shortly. So the provost, we share them. The same we represent the trade, the money. And if you think that the provost represents the political aspect of the town, the deacon convener and the trades represent the commerce. So
Here's the minister coming.
Aye.
Mistress Catherine McBurney, you loose fallen woman,
Me?
you practice as a midwife, for I know not who gave you permission. No child you ever bring into the world comes for baptism. I accuse you of witchcraft at birthing. What child can be safe with a wife of Satan? Repent, woman! This woman, she has a cat. She has a cat, which when it's not wrapped round her ankles, can be seen wandering around the town looking for her next victim. And she herself can be found in the woods looking for herbs and wild flowers and berries from which she can make her potions. She claims she can make anyone well, aye, but at what cost to their souls? Good people, she is to be condemned. She will end up her life at the end of the constable's rope. Repent, Catherine McBurney, or face damnation for eternity.
Again, yes. What potions can we give her? Lavender to calm her down, I think. Yes, yes.
Watch yourself later on and she'll be taking
Night's finished, that's fine. You take it back.
In olden times we used more.
No, no more, no more.
We used herbs and flowers to actually make us feel better, which we ended up actually being like witches. So the lavender oil we used to sprinkle on the bed to make us smell nice. The children gathered rose petals and mixed it with wood ash to make soap. And the children's dresses.
In the 17th century, both boys and girls were dressed the same in skirts and hats. And as the boys progressed from, well, what they called nappies in nowadays, and as they got a bit older, they got breeches, which was a great occasion. So it was, but the dresses and that, they had a secret to them, which Rowan will tell.
The long sleeves were what we call now reins, so that when the children ran away, we would grab them by the sleeve and bring them back again.